Go. Give it a second here for them to come in. Appreciate everybody tuning in here this morning. Again, if you missed the opening stanza here this morning, Daniel Carbone with the interview with Mitch Wexler and Nat here, talking about the school districts, what is playing out by way of a $5.1 trillion bomb and that waiting to hit the economy. Again, it all boils down to the valuations of your houses, Nat, that are based on pie in the sky evaluations or what have you, and that from your various folks and that within your communities who probably do not know any better. And of course, this isn't just a Texas issue. This is something that stretches across the whole United States, all 3,100 plus counties and that across the United States. And yeah, let's hope that they get it done in the Supreme Court of Texas down there, and that this can be replicated across the board across the country, because again, it's not just a Texas issue, it's across the whole United States in which this mechanism and that works. Anyway, that being said, let's see some of the stuff we're going to get to on the broadcast here this morning. Do appreciate you guys tuning in wherever you may be tuning in from here this morning. If you're hanging out over on the Beam side here this morning, appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're hanging out over on the Foxhole side here this morning, tuning in, appreciate you being here. Thank you to BPSN for bringing your crew and that over here in the middle of the interview and that we just had playing here just a minute ago. Appreciate it. If you're hanging out over on the Kick side, over on Rumble, tuning in over on DLive, and now, of course, YouTube, appreciate you guys checking in here this morning for the latest. And let's see some of the stuff we're going to get to outside of what we just got done covering. Again, there's the ultimate house of cards hidden. The $5.1 trillion debt bomb will dwarf the 2008 crisis that we just got done finishing up. Again, just tuning in, rewind the tape, check it out. From there, we'll go to the new generation of industries emerges in Texas as rare earths race ignites. And kind of a lengthy piece, but we'll at least get partway through this here. I don't know, I may end up doing a special piece on this one here, not sure, but fairly lengthy in that regard. We'll get into it. 1/3 of Americans have more credit card debt than savings. That might be a problem. Remember what he just got done saying, that the mom and pops out there, that the house valuations that continue to go up, 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 and up. Eventually, if they go broke, who's going to be left holding the bag? How is all this stuff going to get paid for if they lose your jobs? And as evidenced here, credit cards now are outpacing your savings. Where's the money going to come from? Exactly. Japan eyes letting banks hold and trade Bitcoin as crypto adoption grows. We'll get into that here. I'll also talk a little bit about Brazil has the worst wealth inequality in the world, Slovakia the least. We'll get into the shakedown of the various countries, how they stack up. Also get into rare earths again. Stocks soar after mega U.S.-Australia minerals deal. And that Trump and that sitting down with Albanese here over on Australia here in the last couple days. We'll get into the details. Also, U.S. energy shares surge after announcing new $75 million facility in Pennsylvania on the energy front. We'll get into the details there. Also, Alaska's $44 billion LNG project nears key milestone as pipeline study wraps up. We'll get into the details on that one as well. More on the energy front. Lots of stuff in that space here this morning. Also, Amazon's reputation at risk after 15 hours of disruptions may spur customers wanting cloud from other vendors and that out there. Obviously, if anybody and that to experience any sort of problems across the net on Monday, AWS the culprit, and you quickly realize just how much control or how much of the internet actually goes through Amazon Web Services. Not that many players in that space, but looks like maybe some folks may look to divest. And residential electricity prices surge ahead of commercial and industrial rates. We'll get into that as well. Also, wealth creation. OnlyFans CEO says $25 billion paid to creators in 2016. Interesting take on what is playing out in the OnlyFans space. Also, Chip Roy and allies poised to demand vote on congressional stock ownership ban. Of course, anybody who's ever paid attention to Miss Pelosi knows there's funds out there to track with what she's been tied into. And if you probably followed that portfolio, chances are you've probably done very well inside baseball. And of course, what on earth happened to gold today? A few shocking charts from Goldman Sachs net here out yesterday. Of course, the last day or so, gold has kind of been getting slammed, but I wouldn't put too much worry into that, as traditionally it goes kind of pie-shaped in that before it heads back northward, just having crested the $4,000 plateau, as it were, kind of finding support there. We'll get into the details of that here coming up in just a bit as well. Anyway, that being said, let's take a look at the weather, see what's doing across the country here this morning, and get the old map snap brought up here. There we go. To the left coast, net we go here this morning, and not much doing up across the Pacific Northwest, pretty much across top end of the country. A little scatter net from California, Nevada, down into, looks like Utah, down through Arizona, New Mexico, and over into those areas. See what we got by way of precip here in just a moment. Everybody else net across the middle portion of the country, net looking pretty good here this morning, and a little bit of rain or precip at least coming across parts of Michigan here this morning and out to New England in that here this morning. New York all the way up into Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine, coming across Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, up through that corridor here this morning. See what sort of precip we're getting out of that here in just a second as well. And over on the Pacific side, doesn't look like we have any spinners on the water over on the Pacific side here, at least as of yet. And I do believe yesterday, as we highlighted here down in the Caribbean, what was it, 91L, I think it was, yesterday morning. Today has been renamed Melissa, so apparently it is strengthened enough to be called a named storm there. It looks like not too far off the coast of Venezuela and down through that area there. It looks like maybe heading towards some islands there. We'll see what it does here in the next 24, 48 hours or so, but there's Melissa, kind of loosely congregated system in that down there. And let's see, everything else on the Atlantic and that looking pretty good here as the hurricane season starts to wind down. Not much activity in that we saw here throughout this year. Going to probably go down as a record for the least amount of hurricanes in that formed. We'll see. But nonetheless, precip-wise, again, out to the west net we go here this morning. Not much doing. A little bit of fog in that if you're coming in the coastal drives net along the west coast of Oregon here this morning. Folks net coming across California into Nevada. Looks like maybe seeing a little trace rain in that through those areas there. Folks net down in Arizona and into New Mexico and that also maybe seeing a little bit of rain in that here this morning. High pressure dome and that across much of the U.S. here this morning. So should see some fairly sunny skies. We'll see on the cloud cover here in just a minute. Minnesota and Wisconsin coming across those areas. Looks like a little bit of rain and yeah, at least it looks like it's the rain variety. It doesn't look like it's the frozen precip variety here as of yet. Michigan still getting a little bit of rain and that up in those parts. Folks net coming across northern parts of New York, again up into New England, all the way up into Maine here this morning. Getting a little bit of rain and that through there as well. Some thunderstorms net picking up a couple, 2-3 tenths or so of an inch of rain in those parts. Folks net down in Florida looking pretty good. And let's see, by way of temperatures, down to Florida we go. If you're down in the southern portions of Florida here this morning, looks like coming in right around the low 80-degree mark or so this morning. 70s net more towards the north. Georgia coming in the 70s. Looks like through the Carolinas start to tail off in the upper 60s. Virginia getting into the Maryland line up through that corridor. Looks like in the low mid 60s net through that area. Delaware in the 60s. Looks like coming up into Jersey, into Pennsylvania. Looks like in the 40s net starting to tail off. And by the time you get up into the rest of New England there, looks like Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine, 40s and 50s net across the board there. Looks like northern parts of New York in the 40s, western portions in the 40s as well. Folks net again down to Pennsylvania, 50s and 40s net both across the state there. West Virginia coming in at the mid 50s net here this morning. And if you're down along the coastal areas of the Gulf of America here this morning, from Florida coming across to Alabama, Mississippi looks like in the 70s, Louisiana in the 60s net here this morning, upper 60s. Looks like folks net coming across the coastal areas of Texas. Looks like Houston area maybe around the 70s. And by the time you get down toward the southern part of Texas, you're going to be right around the low 80-degree mark, and that to start your morning. Northern parts in the mid 50s, so 25-ish degree swing from top to bottom of Texas here this morning. Oklahoma, Kansas pushing up through there in the 50s, 40s, start to tail off. And by the time you get up toward the northern parts of North Dakota and that this morning, the 30s up around the Canadian border here this morning. 30s net across a good portion of Minnesota and that here this morning, and Wisconsin in the 30s and 40s net both. Back to the west, though, it looks like if you're in Montana, east side of the state, the 30s, looks like some 20s net across top end of the state there around the Canadian border as well. Idaho in the 30s, 20s net in some select spots there, down to Wyoming in the 30s as well. Folks net back to Washington State, 40s and 30s, upper 30s along the east side of the state there, and some 40s net along the west side, upper 40s. Looks like about the same in that for the folks in Oregon. And it looks like California, northern part of the state, some 30s net, more inland. Looks like some 40s net along the coast, even some 50s if you're up around the west side of California to the north. And by the time you work your way down to the south part of California, it looks like in the 70s net here this morning. Down in the desert areas of Arizona, it looks like you're going to be in the 70s net here to start your morning. Maybe some upper 60s net mixed in as well. And cloud cover, looks like folks net across the Pacific Northwest and that here this morning. Looks like Washington State, Oregon should see some fairly sunny skies net here this morning. Low cloud cover net starting to creep in. Coming across Montana, Idaho, into the Dakotas net should see some fairly sunny skies. There you see that high pressure dome situated across the middle portion of the country, and there you see some of the systems net that we just got done covering there. Some cloud cover across Cali into Nevada, Utah, down in Arizona, over into New Mexico net here this morning. Otherwise, the southeast net looking pretty good, and the folks net on the top end of the country from Minnesota all the way over into New England here this morning, going to be under some cloud cover net here for a portion of the day. We'll see whether or not some of that gets out of here and shoves north and eastward and net here on the day. Folks net down in Florida where it's always sunny, 40-50% cloud cover in some areas, 20% down to the south. Should see some fairly sunny skies net here on the morning as well. In by way of power outages, let's see if this came back to here this morning. And it appears not. I'm not sure what's going on with the old power outage maps net here this morning, but it does not want to cooperate. So we'll move on from that here this morning. And it looks like, by way of smoke and fires net on the morning, looks like folks net up in Canada still got some fires net to contend with over into Alberta and west of there. Still got some fires net up in the Pacific Northwest as well, and up through Washington State and Idaho. It looks like you got plenty of spots net there. Some of those starting to kick up some dense smoke varieties net, so you may see some poor air qualities net over the east side of Washington State into the northern parts of Idaho through there. Dozens of fires all throughout there. Oregon, north of Portland area, got a couple dozen fires net through there. May see some dense smoke in some of those areas as well. Folks net northern part of California got about a dozen and a half fires through there. It looks like north of Sacramento got about 40-some fires net down there now. Down around Fresno, got a couple fires and a couple 2-3 outside of LA area through there. A couple 2-3 and that down to the south part of Cali here this morning. It looks like maybe one even outside of Las Vegas over to the north and west of Las Vegas area in Nevada there. Over to the southeast, and it looks like folks net down in Florida got about 125 fires net down around the Florida-Georgia line. Dozens of fires net across Georgia and Carolinas. Back to the west of that, Alabama got about 4 dozen. Looks like another couple dozen and a half or so maybe in the northern parts of Mississippi, and dozens of fires net down into Louisiana. Dozens of fires net, 4 dozen or so over to Arkansas and through that corridor, as we've seen pretty much all season long. Some of those kicking up light smoke, and some of those areas starting to pick up a little dense smoke as the intensity of those fires net pick up. So may see some poor air quality over in those parts as well. And from there, over to the markets we go here this morning. It says futures flat as gold sell-off extends. And with that, folks, if you're over on the YouTube side here this morning, do appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Again, if you missed the opening stanza here this morning, get over to the other platforms, over to Rumble, over to Kick, over to Foxhole, over to DLive. Rewind the tape, check out the first hour there, and join us over there for the rest of the show. Do appreciate you, and we'll see you guys